Thank you, iiRcade.
VideoGameVegas.
He's so cute.
Friends, VideoGameVegas, and a woo-tastic thank you to iiRcade. No one does the woo like you, Jong, but I thought I'd give it a go. Though it took me some time, I was finally able to understand your vision and the important role it begs to play in the home arcade space. Your continued messaging, along with your core declarations turned into reality, makes me so proud to be part of the iiRcade family. And I don't say that lightly, as I've seen other companies use the word family just to bilk more money from wallets. I feel you use the word family in the right way. And not to sound sappy, but attached to a platform that I feel successfully and with genuine intent links people together through the power of play in an arcade setting. And sure, other companies have claimed similar, but iiRcade has made me feel this. And though many may point to online play as a way to achieve this, I feel the sentiment in iiRcade, regardless of that factor. You've shown through your actions, through your continual product enhancements, an ever-expanding game library, and your direct involvement with your customers via live stream shows and other means, that you truly do care about everyone in the community and how much your word means to you. I remember first seeing iiRcade in a CES 2020 video from a YouTuber I have a lot of respect for, Cool Toy, and he showed interest for the product. I didn't really see it myself, but he thought it was worth attention, so I was willing to keep an open mind. I didn't really understand at the time where it could fit in the current home arcade space, which was now an exciting hobby of mine. From my first impressions, the iiRcade looked like, and this isn't meant as a slight by any means, a basic emulation cabinet where they would sell you games that many could already download and play for free. I liked the fact that it looked well built and that the messaging showed an emphasis to quality, something very important to me. But I already had that kind of hardware quality on an emulation cabinet I bought from a company called Rec Room Masters with their AlphaCade. I didn't really think too much to iiRcade's design. It was neither offensive nor inoffensive, but the artwork, unfortunately, wasn't appealing to me. I admit, the rest of the messaging in that video fell pretty flat on me, and I just couldn't ever see myself owning an iiRcade. If companies would just make the games I loved available, and at a fair price, and through the means I want to play them, I'd buy them. This is a mantra I've touted since my earliest console days. When the first Sony PlayStation came out, and we were finally able to get one-to-one ports of our favorite arcade games, I bought many of them. Namco, Konami, Capcom, Atari, you name it, were putting out arcade collections and individual games left and right, and I stuck to my word and picked up many of them. I continued to do this through many console generations, picking these up again and again on latter systems just to get my classic arcade fix at home. But there were still so many games I loved that were never released to the home market. Then I discovered a little thing called emulation. I wanted Berzerk. I needed Berzerk, an old Stern arcade game that, to this day, as of the making of this video, as far as I know, has still not yet been licensed released in its original arcade form to a home platform. If it weren't for emulation, this game would be mostly lost to time, unless, perhaps, you happen upon a rare original cabinet out in the wild, and that, my friends, is not fair. So many other games are in this boat as well, and many fans like me have grown tired with those holding the rights to these games, locking them away in some sort of secret vault where no one can play them anymore. The tech is here to make so many of these games available right now, on any platform really, but the unwillingness of whoever's holding things up, maybe due to the lack of monetary potential, licensing limbo greed, or even the lack of general interest, means that many fans like me might well be dead, before we could play them again by official means. Enter another player into the home arcade space, iiRcade. iiRcade doesn't currently have Berzerk, but the reason my interest never completely waned for iiRcade was the possibility of a classic arcade title like Berzerk coming out licensed on a home arcade platform. And with the situation I was in, quickly running out of room in my home arcade to add new machines, iiRcade's single cabinet solution, where its game library is legitimately expanded through an online game store without the need to purchase additional cabinets, was becoming compelling. And arcade cabinets are where I want to play arcade games. Consoles are okay, and were an acceptable compromise back in the day, but now that I have the option to play on actual arcade machines, I don't want to go back. Consoles just don't replicate that arcade vibe I crave. A controller in the hand can never replace that cabinet experience for me. Now, iiRcade has an uphill battle for sure, with other solutions allowing people to play a large amount of their library by other means for free. But what iiRcade has in its favor, which free emulation doesn't always get right, is iiRcade releases their game versions professionally vetted to make them look, play, and sound correctly like they were in the arcade. Could you imagine, though, if iiRcade released years ago, before the height of free emulation? I think they would have been the system to beat. Now, I never fancy myself a hypocrite, and my mantra isn't just words to me, and I wanted to give iiRcade a fair shot. But trust is a big part of that equation. I've been burned before by words and false promises, and I prefer a company to earn that trust before I just hand over my money. I was pretty guarded at this point in my home arcade journey, feeling swindled in ways by other companies, and unfortunately, iiRcade came at a time where I was extra cautious. But something about Jong's messaging in his many interactions with the public felt genuine, and I was willing to hear him out and see where it went. The first thing iiRcade needed to do to pull me in was to prove the quality they advertised. Not just in build though, but to also make it look pleasing, like something I'd really want to buy. Not to say their original art ideas were unpleasant, they just weren't for me. iiRcade definitely delivered the goods in the looks department when they unveiled their first two themed cabinets, one fashioned after Dragon's Lair and the other fashioned after Double Dragon. Though that cabinet SKU was intended as a blank canvas, the art wasn't pre-applied, just coming as a bonus for those who wanted the Double Dragon theme. Now, these weren't attempting to recreate the art from their original counterparts, but instead to showcase the essence of the games themselves. I was blown away by what iiRcade came up with. The shape of the cabinet then became a total moot point, because it was very clear that all these cabinets really needed was an amazing paint job. Unfortunately, at the time, I was dead set on getting a recreation of the first Dragon's Lair arcade cabinet that a company called Arcade1Up planned to release. Though I would have loved to get the superior artwork found on iiRcade's iteration, as it did provide me really the same nostalgic vibes, I was really jonesing for the look of that original arcade experience I grew up with. As for the Double Dragon variant, I didn't want to apply the art myself, so it was a no-go as well. I decided to wait and see what amazing art creations iiRcade would come up with next. As iiRcade started shipping to backers, reviews started trickling in, and everything seemed mostly positive. It looked as though Jong wasn't just giving lip service when it came to his claims on quality. Everything seemed to trump the quality I was settling for with Arcade1Up, and that ticked off another box in iiRcade's favor. The next hurdle for me was games. I bought a cabinet based on the Neo Geo brand from a company Unico called the MVSX. It came with 50 licensed games, just over a third of the entire Neo Geo arcade library, which blew the gates off anything Arcade1Up had released as far as library size. Now, I want to point out, though library size is an important value factor for me, it's only valuable if the games are good, and that the built-in control schemes can play the games as intended. I never have a problem with a cabinet that has a small game library if its unique controls are meant to only play those few games. I feel that Arcade1Up, or the partners they work with, skimp on the number of games on cabinets which have compatible control layouts that can handle more, just to trickle in a few more games onto newer iterations of their products. And though I won't dismiss the licensing deals that need to be made, I don't like this game delivery business model, and let Arcade1Up know by not purchasing many iterations of their products. I don't want to have to replace a cabinet just to get more games. I sent Arcade1Up an alternative or in tandem solution they might consider to remedy this. I suggested that they make a cabinet line with the built-in ability to buy more publisher-specific games through an online store. They never got back to me. And I didn't expect them to, really. Who am I? Unico also toyed with the possibility of offering a way to add more games to the MVSX legitimately, but unfortunately, it didn't pan out. iiRcade was literally granting my wish. So what was the holdup? The games themselves. In my mind, since Unico was able to offer me a cabinet with 50 quality games, maybe not of all interest to me, but still quality, I wanted to get at least that many quality games from iiRcade. I kept watching iiRcade's store growth, and eventually they acquired 50 that I felt were not only quality, but ones that I personally wanted. With iiRcade, I can just pick the titles I want. Sure, it adds an additional cost beyond the initial cabinet purchase, but way less money than buying additional cabinets every time I want some new games. And with room a rare commodity, and iiRcade now providing artwork related to games I have nostalgia for, their solution became viable to me. And let's make no bones about it, any number of quality products from multiple companies can coexist to round out an amazing home arcade experience. iiRcade on games now? Check. One thing I kind of dismissed during Cool Toys' CES interview with Jong was the mention of modern games coming to the cabinet, not just classic arcade titles. I thought at the time, who cares? It's an arcade cabinet. I'm not going to be playing current games on it. But the community kept nourishing the idea of modern games that looked and played like classic arcade games, but now on an arcade cabinet, maybe even newer iterations of classic arcade games as well. Then something poignant was said during one of iiRcade's live streams. I can't quite recall if Jong or Colin, another member of iiRcade, said it, but, and I'm paraphrasing, if arcades were still a big thing today, some of these newer titles may have had actual arcade cabinets made for them. When this clicked in my head, my mind was blown. I not only started to think about all the new game possibilities, but if I was to actually get an iiRcade, it would be, for me, like traveling back in time, walking into that classic arcade and seeing a new cabinet arrive for the first time. And given iiRcade's own design language, it also meshed with a feeling I started to desire for my own home arcade. To recreate the sensation of my early experiences, where every cabinet I saw had its own unique shape and look. An added bonus for sure. But getting back to the modern games front, iiRcade then acquired a wiggler of a game, and even created a cabinet SKU for it with its own branded artwork, Mutant Football League. Arcade NFL Blitz-like meets classic Sega Genesis console title Mutant League Football. This reinforced in me their notion to bring modern games that replicate the feeling of classic ones to their platform. An amazing example to one of Jong's visions. But as with some things in life, sometimes things don't go the way you plan. Unfortunately, complications arose and Mutant Football League would have to be put on indefinite hold. Certainly a blow to iiRcade, but to me, there was a very huge positive to come from it. When things like this happen, I've seen so many companies try to spin a tale, or in some cases, go completely silent. Not Jong. He gave continual updates, and as soon as he assessed the full situation, he came out himself and gave it to everyone straight. Such class and integrity with full transparency. How rare is that? That is what finally gave me the confidence to seriously consider an iiRcade. Now I just needed the perfect artwork. As I mentioned before, I loved iiRcade's Dragon's Lair artwork, but I was pretty much set on getting Arcade 1-Up's version for that look I remembered from my early days in the arcade. But the wait would finally pay off. iiRcade announced a limited edition Space Ace cabinet. Like iiRcade's Dragon's Lair, the iiRcade Space Ace was a genuine work of art. A sheer beauty that trumped the original arcade cabinet art in almost every way. This was it, the cabinet for me. And I even imagined what it would look like standing next to an Arcade 1-Up Dragon's Lair cabinet. An amazing compliment for sure. But as I was on the cusp of purchasing my iiRcade, I just couldn't get something out of my head. Something that often plagued me with other companies. Bad customer support. How would iiRcade's customer support stack up? How long would I have to wait to get an answer or to get help? I decided to test it. I went to iiRcade's website to hunt down their customer support center, but before I could even start my search, it came to me. I was instantly greeted by a pop-up chat and promptly connected to an iiRcade representative. Wow. Within moments, I started having all my questions answered, and in such a polite and professional manner. iiRcade seemed to be taking customer support very seriously. But here's where I need to take a pause and give my first bit of constructive criticism and feedback. As of the making of this video, iiRcade's level of customer support has unfortunately diminished. The chat module now, more often than not, won't connect you to an actual person, but instead, send your message to support via email. Now don't get me wrong, I don't mind leaving a message or fixing issues via email, but it just seems the norm now, and definitely hit or miss on how long you'll have to wait or when you'll see resolution. In fact, the support for my last hardware purchase was a disappointing mess, an exercise in one frustration after another, though it should be noted that iiRcade did stick with it and made the major things right. I plan to go more in depth on this in a future video. I can only speculate that the weakening support might be due to iiRcade's ever-growing customer base, which is great to see it grow. But now it might be time to consider increasing the number of support staff to compensate. I guess I just want that amazing support experience again, what I experienced in the beginning, not only for myself, but for all iiRcade family members, and for those to come. And this leads me to my last bit of feedback. My advice, if you will. iiRcade, please avoid releasing products before they're ready, and beef up or put more emphasis on quality control. As I mentioned several times, quality is very important to me, and I'm happy to say, because of the majority of positive reviews I watched or read, I finally did take the plunge and became part of the iiRcade family. Space Ace was coming home. However, not every purchase I've made has been a triumph, which I plan to touch upon in future review videos. But let's just say for now, it hurts to receive something less than advertised. Taking time to make sure everything is right before it's released can only benefit iiRcade and its customers. Now, I refuse to end this video on a dour note, so I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Michael from iiRcade. Your direct link to the public via your Game Days show is something that can't be understated. Every time you take time out of your busy schedule to put on the show, whether it be live or pre-recorded, gives me a renewed sense of excitement and wonder for the iiRcade. When I got to participate in a live session, I felt so welcome and a real part of the conversation. You took time to respond to my questions, all while keeping everything light and fun. Your genuine love for the company shines through in every video and also with everything you craft for the iiRcade. Thank you so much for all you do. To Jong, Michael, Colin, and everyone at iiRcade, thank you. And to all those who have partnered with and work with iiRcade, thank you. Jong, you've created something more than just another home arcade product. The essence of iiRcade feels like family to me, and it's like nothing I've experienced before. The product continues to evolve well past my expectations, and I can't wait to see what you and your extremely talented team come up with next. For those who might not yet be familiar with iiRcade, I'll post a link to their YouTube channel below so you can see what all the excitement is about. And with that, safe travels everyone. And remember, you always have a right to your opinion, but only I have a right to mine. Until next time, stay wiggly, my friends.